Good morning, Dan. This is Robert Perlman with collectSPACE.com. Welcome back to Earth.
Hey, good morning, Robert. It's good to be with you today. Thank you.
So I've heard in some of the earlier interviews today about you describing your adjustment back to Earth. I was wondering, having just come back from my own month-long trek, I realized that I had missed some of the news that happened around because I wasn't really paying attention to it. Did you experience the same thing? Was there something that happened here on Earth that you went, oh, that happened when you got back?
It's kind of hard to say because it's big exact events and so forth. We do get sent up from the ground, from Houston and other control centers, the news. So we're able to catch up on the daily news if we have time at the end of the day. And it's print news and actually some of the news programs as well. You felt like you were pretty much in touch and you were able to talk to your family. So there wasn't anything major that I think took place that we didn't generally know about within about 12 hours.
Okay. So going back to the beginning of your arrival on station, you had an expedited handover because of, I believe, the progress loss back then, and the ripples through the schedule. How did that handover go, and would you recommend that type of expedited schedule to a future crew?
It was kind of a whirlwind. So when we docked, when Anton, Anatoly, and I docked to space station, we had basically 4 days worth of handover. You know, physical handover, where the existing crew, Mike Fossum, Sergei Volkov, and Satoshi Furukawa, were able to show us the ropes and teach us how to fly space station. We typically have anywhere from 2 months to 4 months on a normal handover, so we try to overlap the crews and give them as much time as possible. The beauty of the way this thing worked out, though, is that we knew well in advance that we would have a very minimal handover and perhaps none at all. So what we did is Mike and Satoshi and Sergei sent us down videos of all the various things they would do on a daily basis. So we had the luxury over a couple of months to watch videos multiple times. And in a way, kind of in hindsight, looking back on it, it might have been the best way to do the handovers. We essentially did a virtual handover, and it wasn't the kind of thing where somebody would, Mike, would, for example, would show me how to do something one time over the course of a couple of months that we had together. It was something that I could watch as many times as I liked until I understood it. And then when I saw him face to face, you know, we could talk about the specifics, questions I might have had. So the handover worked out actually very, very well.
Your expedition, if I'm not mistaken, was the first to reach an average of 35 hours of utilization time. And I was wondering if you can quantify or describe that in some way that people here on Earth could relate. How busy were you in terms of doing science versus doing assembly and maintenance? Well, not assembly, but maintenance activities on station.
You bet. Well, space station, we're operating on a frontier, so it's a lot like operating a science station down in Antarctica, for example. A lot of the things that you do on a daily basis is keeping the systems of space station, for example, operating safely and doing it in such a way, doing repairs to systems if they need it in such a way that they will last a long time. If we had an issue on the space shuttle, for example, the crew on board a space shuttle, all they have to do is essentially safe a system, and we all know that within 2 weeks that space shuttle is going to be in the care of people who have dedicated their lives and are among the best in the world at taking care of that vehicle, and they'll make it like new before it flies again. Space station, it's a different animal. So a lot of the things that you do up there, if you have to do a repair, have to be commensurate with how people who have spent their entire lives working on hardware would do things. Most of our activity on space station was the utilization part of it. And you mentioned 35 hours, and I would caution you a little bit because that's really not the best way to think of it. We arbitrarily, it's an artifact of how we organize the space station from a budgetary standpoint here on the ground. The thing that space station was designed to do is to answer the kind of scientific questions that allow us to leave low Earth orbit. That will answer questions that are of a basic nature that allow us to develop pharmaceuticals that will help, you know, life on Earth, for example. There are scientific investigations, for example, on board space station while we were there that numbered almost 200. And these were experiments that we did, and there were also experiments that are operated by hundreds and thousands of scientists and researchers all around the world 24/7. A lot of the science on station is done essentially remotely, and we, the crew on board station, will be the lab technicians that take care of the hardware, that participate in some of the research, but much of it is done on the ground. The work that you do on station, essentially keeping it functioning, really is a much greater amount than the number you mentioned. We also do a lot of research on station that really does not fall in the category of what I'd call scientific research, but is technological development research. So the environmental control system that we have on space station that we very much depend on now allows us to very much close the environmental control life support loop. We want to reclaim as much of the moisture, for example, the water that humans produce in just the course of living, and we want to feed that back into the environmental control loop. So we recover water from urine, we recover water from sweat, from what we exhale, and all that is purified, ultra purified, I can assure you, and in a very sophisticated system that gives us back that water and also gives us the ability to generate oxygen. So we reclaim about 2/3 of the water that otherwise would be lost. That technology actually has a lot of relevance here on planet Earth, and that technology has been used in disaster zones in third world countries, for example. But it also allows us to be much wiser about how we take care of our resources on planet Earth. And there are many other examples on space station, and those go far beyond the 35 hours that you'd mentioned.
Well, in terms of returning some of that results back to Earth, SpaceX is getting ready to launch their first Dragon capsule to the International Space Station, something that would have happened maybe on your stay had it played out differently. But if I understand correctly, they're going to be one of the first down mass opportunities, or only big down mass opportunities after the end of shuttle. And on their list of stuff, they're bringing back crew clothing and crew choice items. And so I'm wondering if that includes your items, and does that add an additional personal stake to the success of this mission?
Well, the importance of having SpaceX and their Dragon vehicle and the Cygnus vehicle that's going to be developed and flown by Orbital Science is absolutely critical to station. We need to have a logistics lifeline that brings up supplies to station, but we also depend an awful lot on having the capability of returning samples back to Earth, for example. A lot of the biological samples that are the result of NASA experiments that answer the question of how to keep humans safe and productive and healthy in space for a long period of time really require getting those samples back to planet Earth where we can study them. So the only capability beyond the small amount of volume that we can return with us on a Soyuz is now going to be afforded by the SpaceX Dragon vehicle. And down the road we hope to have more capability, but it's actually a critical component of getting some down mass, of being able to return things from space. We do have a small amount that we're able to bring back that are things like crew clothing or journals that we might have kept on board space station, or for a few mementos and things like that. But the real importance of a vehicle like SpaceX and its down mass capability is for the science and operations of station. So it's really important for all of us, and we hope very much that they're successful in this.
Well, thank you for your time today, and welcome back to Earth again.
Robert, thank you. It's good to be with you today.